welcome to part 3 of the time-saving tips to end binge and stress eating. I'm Siobhan Key from Weight Solutions for Physicians and the Weight Solutions for Physicians podcast. Now, I hope you've listened to 1 and 2 because I think those are the best tips, and those are the ones that if you start putting them into your life, they're going to see, or you'll see changes very quickly with them. This tip, number 3, is a little bit broader, but it's really important. So you might not see the changes super quickly with this, but the more you practice it and the more you work on, then you can have like completely life transforming changes with this tip. Before we get going on tip number 3, I just wanted to remind you that these videos are for educational purposes only. They do not constitute medical advice, nor does watching them constitute a physician-patient relationship. All right, let's get going. Tip number 3. All right, binge and stress eating is not about the food. Now, if you remember in tip number 1, I think it does matter how much and what types of foods you're eating, for sure. They can drive your appetite, and different times of day can affect that too. But underlying binge and stress eating are not about the actual food. So the food that we eat when we're binge and stress eating definitely have, like, nobody generally binges and stress eats on asparagus. It's usually more processed foods and sugary foods. Sometimes if you're eating low carb, you may still struggle with binge or stress eating on low carb foods, but it's usually not things like vegetables. It's usually something that's fairly highly energy dense foods. And those foods do have an effect on our brain. And so we don't want to undermine that effect or ignore that effect, because sugar definitely affects your dopamine receptors. Processed food affects your dopamine receptors, and some people do have addictive behavior towards these foods that drive some of their behavior. But I really believe that most of what drives the binge and the stress eating is the rest of our life. So the binge and the stress eating is a symptom. It's not the problem. But traditional diet programs, we focus on the eating and we need to change the eating over here. But we miss out on all this stuff over here that's actually driving the eating. And if we actually turn our focus and we focus over here, then the eating becomes much more simpler to address and to change. So tip number 3 is pay attention to your thoughts. Be curious about them and recognize that your thoughts cause your feelings, and depending on how you're feeling will cause your actions. Now, I want to give you a bonus tip because I think these ones go hand in hand. The bonus tip is approach yourself with compassionate curiosity. So when you're learning this, especially if you have something like binge eating or really significant stress eating, it's not going to be a smooth road. Like, it would be unrealistic to expect yourself to watch these videos and just move down the road and be like, woo, no more. There is a learning curve with this, and it is a situation where you're probably going to fall down. You'll trip on this path, you'll fall down, and you'll have to get up and keep working on it. And what I mean by that is you need to try these out. Sometimes they'll work, sometimes they'll seem like they don't, and then you just keep trying them. And you keep learning. And if you approach yourself with compassionate curiosity instead of judgment, then you put yourself in such a better place to actually learn this stuff for the long haul. Now, if you are finding these tips to be helpful, I would love to hear. Send me an email at info@weightsolutionsforphysicians.ca. And if you feel you could use some extra support, then my coaching program is the perfect place to get that. In my coaching program, we dig deep in a one-on-one situation to find out what your particular triggers are for overeating, binge eating, or stress eating, and then we work on them bit by bit until we find lasting solutions. So you go from feeling out of control with your eating to feeling confident and in control that you can manage your eating and your weight for life. That's a pretty powerful place to be in. And if that sounds good, head over to my website, weightsolutionsforphysicians.ca, click on the Work With Me tab, and book a free introductory session where we can chat one-on-one and see how I can best help you with your weight concerns. Thank you so much for listening. Please feel free to share about this video. We'll talk to you later.